In a world where every nation paints a unique stroke on the canvas of humanity, there exist those that stand out for their challenges, controversies, and complexities. Today, we embark on a journey to explore some of the most intriguing corners of our globe. Countries marked by rudeness, corruption, adultery, and poverty. From the bustling streets of metropolises to the quiet corners of rural landscapes, we'll delve into the stories behind these nations, uncovering the reasons behind their struggles and triumphs. Welcome to a journey like no other. Number 1. Somalia. Somalia, located on the Horn of Africa, is a country with contrasting traits. On one side, it has beautiful scenery and a diverse cultural history. However, it is plagued with corruption, poverty, and unrest. Somalia has been ranked as the most corrupt country in the world based on the Corruption Perceptions Index, with a low score of 11 out of 100. Despite attempts to address corruption by implementing anti-corruption measures and making changes in the public sector, the situation continues to be severe. Somalia ranks poorly at the bottom of the list in Transparency International's 2023 report. In the meantime, Somalia is dealing with various difficulties, from droughts and conflicts to the continuing pandemic. Picture this: 70% of individuals in Somalia are living under the poverty line, while a striking 90% are facing multidimensional poverty. This indicates they do not have access to essentials such as education and infrastructure. Not to mention the recent drought crisis, one of the most severe in the region's history. Somalia, like Ethiopia and Kenya, suffered the most from this disaster, making its already severe situation even worse. Now, you may be wondering, is there any chance for Somalia? Even with difficulties, there have been some signs of improvement. There has been a slight increase in GDP growth in recent years, even though it has been modest. Still, the path to recuperation is lengthy and challenging. Number 2. Venezuela. Located in the north of South America, Venezuela is surrounded by the Caribbean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean, showcasing beautiful scenery and a varied population. However, underneath it all is a story of struggle and chaos that has deeply affected the country for many years. Venezuela has been facing a massive corruption crisis. Consider corruption as a weed. Once it establishes itself, it's difficult to eliminate. The oil found in Venezuela during the early 1900s was expected to bring good fortune, but unfortunately, it led to political corruption instead. Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index presents a concerning image. Venezuela ranks poorly on the corruption scale, scoring only 13 out of 100, where 0 is highly corrupt and 100 is very clean. Yes, exactly 13 out of 100. When comparing to all the countries surveyed, Venezuela's ranking is a low 177th out of 180. And if you thought that was unfortunate, brace yourselves. It becomes more negative. In 2023, Transparencia Venezuela shocked everyone by disclosing that the total value of judicial cases probing government corruption was an astonishing $70 billion. That is not a small amount of money, people. Corruption is not only an issue in Venezuela, but it is ingrained in the culture. When corruption spreads uncontrollably, it is akin to a wrecking ball destructing the economy. The mishandling of finances, the theft, the secret agreements, all have negative consequences. And who bears the cost? You got it right, the regular citizens of Venezuela. Inflation has skyrocketed, causing essential items such as food and medicine to become too costly for a large number of people. The economy, which was flourishing before, is now on the verge of falling apart, and the population is experiencing financial pressure. It is a grim truth for a nation that was formerly lauded as a dominant economic force in the area. However, in the midst of all the turmoil, we must remember the strong spirit of the Venezuelan population. They have faced difficult challenges, but they remain determined to remain hopeful. In spite of grappling with one of the most challenging crises in recent memory, Venezuelans persist in striving for a brighter future. Number 3. Syria. Syria is located at the center of the Middle East, with Turkey to the north, Iraq to the east, Jordan to the south, and Lebanon and Israel to the southwest. Throughout history, its advantageous location has turned it into a hub for different cultures and a meeting point for various civilizations. Regrettably, Syria has a questionable reputation in the international community. Syria's ranking on Transparency International's 2023 Corruption Perceptions Index was a low 13 out of 100, tying it with Venezuela as the third most corrupt nation globally. A score of 13 indicates a dangerously low level of trust in the public sector, pointing to widespread corruption that undermines the core of society. It's an astonishing discovery that illuminates the difficulties experienced by the Syrian population every day. What does this corruption actually appear like in practical terms? Well, it adheres to a well-known storyline. Government officials exploiting their authority for personal benefit, leaving ordinary citizens to suffer the consequences. It is a timeless story that still haunts countries like Syria, hindering advancement and prolonging unfairness. Picture residing in a community where the leaders place their personal agendas above the welfare of the individuals they are supposed to represent. Millions of Syrians face this harsh reality daily. So, how should we respond to these intimidating challenges? Having information is empowering. By bringing attention to topics such as corruption in Syria, we can spark discussions, increase understanding, and ultimately advocate for transformation. Every voice counts, and collectively, we can work towards a future where honesty and trustworthiness are paramount. Number 4. South Sudan. Located in the northeast of Africa, South Sudan shares borders with Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the Central African Republic. In 2011, South Sudan achieved independence from Sudan, making it the newest country in Africa. However, a complex story lurks behind its youthful age. Were you aware that South Sudan has the same corruption rating as Venezuela and Syria? Yes, indeed, it holds the 4th position for being the most corrupt country globally, with a CPI score of 13. Corruption is not only a number, but a brutal truth that impacts the livelihoods of millions. Now, let's have a discussion about poverty. South Sudan has experienced 2 devastating civil wars since gaining independence. The wounds from these battles are profound, resulting in 80% of the citizens residing in poverty. Picture a situation where 4 out of 5 individuals are facing difficulties in providing for their families, ensuring there is enough food on the table. And as if that wasn't sufficient, South Sudan is also under the control of Mother Nature. Recurring droughts and floods continue to worsen the already weak economy and infrastructure. It's similar to engaging in a warfare with no break in sight, facing challenges from all sides. Despite facing numerous challenges, there is a glimmer of hope on the horizon. The year 2024 is set to be crucial for South Sudan. Tentative plans have been made for elections in December, providing a ray of hope for a country exhausted from years of conflict and instability. A smooth transfer of authority might be the solution to opening up a more promising future, ensuring economic stability and enabling families to create lasting sources of income. Number 5. Yemen. Yemen, situated at the bottom of the Arabian Peninsula, is a country with a diverse past and stunning scenery. Do not be deceived by its beauty, as a brutal reality lurks below the surface. Regrettably, Yemen is known for being one of the most corrupt nations globally. Having a CPI score of only 16 highlights the widespread corruption in this country. In addition, Yemen also has the distinction of being one of the least wealthy nations in the Middle East. Almost 80% of the population in Yemen are trying to survive each day while living in poverty. However, how did Yemen find itself in such desperate circumstances? It is a story that has been around for ages. The Yemeni economy has been devastated by almost 10 years of conflict, worsened by the impact of climate change. War results in economic downturns and rising prices, causing numerous civilians to lose their employment or stable sources of income. As soon as there was progress due to a UN-mediated ceasefire in 2022, Yemen's delicate economy suffered a severe setback with a blockade on oil exports in 2023. However, there is a glimmer of hope in the distance. It will be essential to tackle the long-standing economic disparities in Yemen in order to establish lasting peace and prosperity. With proper measures in place, Yemen can overcome challenges and move towards a better future, despite the difficulties ahead. Number 6. Niger. Niger, situated in West Africa, is a country without coastline surrounded by Algeria, Libya, Chad, Nigeria, Benin, Burkina Faso, and Mali. Wow, what a neighborhood that is, right? The World Bank has stated that Niger is confronted with a massive challenge. Imagine this. More than 50% of the people in the country survive on less than $2.15 every day. Allow yourself to absorb that information. Those numbers represent actual individuals in difficulty trying to make ends meet. What is the reason for these concerning statistics? It's a combination of factors all coming together perfectly. Niger is facing instability due to interfactional conflicts that have been exacerbated by climate change. Also, we should remember its history of colonization, which, similar to numerous African countries, has resulted in its economy being unstable long after gaining independence. In 1960, Niger bid farewell to colonialism, yet the remnants of that time still endure. The infrastructure and economy passed down were not strong, which paved the way for the difficulties we are facing now. Furthermore, we should also discuss the coup that shook Niger in the previous year. The sanctions that followed exacerbated the situation, driving the most susceptible Nigerians further into poverty. Inflation rose sharply, causing the prices of basic necessities to rapidly increase, making it difficult for families to afford food. Number 7. Burundi. Burundi faces a grim reality due to its high population density. Roughly 75% of the population resides under the poverty threshold. Picture a scenario where 75% of the population faces daily challenges to meet their basic needs. Why does this happen? Looking back to the recent past, you'd discover a country marked by a destructive civil war that concluded in 2005. The lingering effects of this conflict continue to haunt the lives of numerous Burundians. Moreover, Burundi is also dealing with the constant effects of climate change, in addition to everything else. An astonishing statistic is that 80% of Burundi's residents depend on farming for their income. However, increasing temperatures and uncertain weather patterns could endanger this traditional way of living. It is a blunt truth for a nation with strong ties to agriculture traditions. However, in the midst of these difficulties, there is a ray of hope in the distance. In 2023, Burundi experienced economic expansion, a sign of advancement amidst a tumultuous environment. The World Bank forecasts additional expansion, with estimates reaching 3.8% in the current year. What is the underlying force behind this favorable development? Well, it's all a component of a broader plan. The government of Burundi is dedicated to strengthening debt consolidation and enhancing the economic forecast. What is their aim? By 2040, aim to become an emerging country and progress to developed country status by 2060. Number 8. Mali. Mali, situated in the center of West Africa, is the fourth largest country on the continent. Formerly a bustling center of commerce and civilization, Timbuktu, its capital, was renowned as a legendary and dazzling gem in the Sahara Desert. However, looking ahead to the present day, the situation is not as positive. Picture this: Mali is situated next to Burkina Faso and Niger, finding itself surrounded by a region filled with security issues. The Sahel, a region located south of the Sahara Desert, is filled with turmoil, as extremism and conflict greatly impact the everyday lives of its inhabitants. Climate change, the quiet threat infiltrating all corners of our globe, is also affecting Mali. Mali experiences the full impact of Mother Nature's wrath with droughts, floods, and unpredictable rainfall, causing communities to struggle and resources to be depleted. For the last 12 years, Mali has been engaged in a battle, dealing with internal conflicts and tensions within the region. Just when things seemed like they couldn't deteriorate further, the pandemic arrived and delivered a devastating blow to a country that was already struggling. Imagine this: an astonishing 90% of Malians are living under the poverty line. Allow yourself to fully absorb that information. The proportion of 90%. It is more than just a number. It is a tough truth that millions encounter daily. Corruption, a sneaky enemy that erodes the essence of society, has firmly grasped onto Mali's roots. Corruption is widespread, diverting valuable resources from the people through embezzlement and bribery. And what's even worse, the betrayal is mostly felt by the ordinary Malian citizen. Now let's talk about the obvious issue: adultery. Mali, similar to other countries, deals with challenges related to unfaithfulness and conflict within marriages. However, during the confusion and difficulties, love and loyalty continue to exist, serving as a symbol of hope in the toughest moments. Number 9. Chad. Located in the center of Africa, Chad is a country without access to the sea, and it has a varied culture and a deep history. However, Chad is encountering significant obstacles that have resulted in a negative perception that is difficult to overcome, despite its possibilities. Imagine this, a $4 billion pipeline winding its way through Chad, linking its oil fields to the coast. Wouldn't you expect that to lead to financial success? Not exactly. Even with this economic support, Chad continues to be one of the least developed countries globally. More than 42% of the inhabitants of Chad are below the country's poverty threshold. Furthermore, over 35% of individuals are struggling to survive on less than $2.15 per day. That isn't just poverty, people. That is severe poverty. However, for what reason? What is preventing Chad from realizing its complete potential? It's a combination of factors coming together perfectly. Local and regional battles have destroyed the nation, further damaging its already weak infrastructure. Sudan, who is Chad's neighbor, also lacks stability. As crises continue to spread across borders, Chad is dealing with a large number of refugees entering the country, further burdening its resources. The more these conflicts continue, the further Chad plunges into the swamp of poverty and hopelessness. However, that is not the only thing. Internal uncertainty, approaching elections, and the impending threat of climate change add further complexity to the situation. What is the next step for Chad? How can it escape this cycle of poverty and conflict? Simply hoping for a positive outcome is not enough. International collaboration, sustainable growth, and a great deal of resilience will be necessary. Number 10. Sierra Leone. Located on the western coast of Africa, this nation showcases beautiful scenery, diverse cultures, and strong individuals. However, its tumultuous history often masks the intricate reality that lies beneath its surface. Following a brutal civil war lasting over 10 years, Sierra Leone had a difficult journey towards achieving peace and stability after it ended in 2002. However, the effects of conflict leave a profound impact on its people and development, with scars running deep. Furthermore, Sierra Leone has been severely impacted by additional recent crises. From the Ebola outbreak between 2014 and 2016 to the fury of natural disasters and the continuing struggles caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, this strong country has encountered a series of challenges. Despite making progress in their economy, Sierra Leone has experienced a dramatic rise in inflation rates. Between 2021 and 2022 alone, the percentage increased significantly from 11.9% to a massive 27.2%, as documented by the World Bank. Unfortunately, these economic difficulties mostly impact the wallets of ordinary Sierra Leoneans. Around 26% of the populace resides beneath the global poverty threshold, with rural regions experiencing a drastic increase to a whopping 60%. What is the decision? Is Sierra Leone truly considered one of the most impolite, corrupt, unfaithful, and impoverished nations globally? It's a difficult question that doesn't have a simple solution. Although facing difficulties, the country also boasts resilient communities, lively cultures, and areas full of optimism. Number 11. Burkina Faso. Located at the center of West Africa and surrounded by 6 neighboring countries, this hidden treasure can be found. Burkina Faso's diverse cultural and natural beauty, from the bustling markets of Ouagadougou to the picturesque Sahel landscapes, make it truly stunning. Beneath the surface of loveliness lies a cruel truth. Burkina Faso is experiencing significant difficulties that have brought it to the forefront for negative reasons. Burkina Faso is facing its most severe humanitarian crisis due to a combination of political unrest, conflict, and climate change, creating a perfect storm. And do you realize what's even more surprising? This crisis has been largely overlooked by most of the world, particularly in Western media. In the year 2023, a small sign of optimism emerged. There was a significant decrease in inflation, and a slight reduction in extreme poverty occurred. However, what's surprising is that more than 40% of the population in Burkina Faso are still living below the poverty line. That is an astonishing fact, people. And the brutal reality is this: sustained progress in reducing poverty levels depends on one crucial factor: security. However, regrettably, the country has still been plagued by violence, extending from 2023 into 2024. You may have come across some negative terms being used to describe Burkina Faso, such as impolite, corrupt, unfaithful, and impoverished. Although it may seem like an exaggeration, there is some truth to these labels. Corruption is a significant problem in this area, people. It infiltrates all aspects of society, impeding advancement and maintaining poverty. When it comes to the word adulterous, it is evident that conventional gender roles and societal expectations can make women susceptible to unjust treatment and misuse. Although facing difficulties, Burkina Faso is a strong country with strong citizens. From local projects to global assistance programs, hope is visible in the near future. Number 12. France. Situated in Western Europe, France is well known for its extensive history, impressive architecture, and delicious cuisine. Located among Spain, Germany, Italy, and the Atlantic Ocean, this cultural hotspot draws millions of tourists annually. However, hidden behind its charming exterior is a reputation that may come as a surprise to some. The French have a reputation for being somewhat impolite, as one may notice. Indeed, based on a recent survey, a significant 19% of participants identified France as the most impolite country globally. Before you rush to unpack your bags and give up on that dream vacation to Paris, let's take a look at the reasons behind this perception. French individuals are frequently recognized for their brusque and blunt behavior, particularly when interacting with visitors from other countries. It is common to hear stories of visitors feeling offended by what they see as impolite remarks or actions. Some tourists may feel unwelcome in France due to experiencing unfriendly service in cafes and encountering impatient attitudes in shops. Is it true that the French have a reputation for being rude? Or is there a deeper explanation for their behavior? Cultural variances, it seems, have a major impact. French people appreciate straightforwardness and truthfulness, even though it may seem blunt to individuals from cultures that value politeness and niceties. What may come across as impoliteness to one individual may be interpreted as honesty to someone else. Moreover, language barriers and varying social norms can also play a role in creating misunderstanding between residents and visitors. It is important to recognize cultural differences and avoid forming opinions about a whole country based on individual encounters. Number 13. Russia. Russia, the biggest country on the planet, extending from Eastern Europe to Northern Asia, is known for its stunning scenery, deep history, and lively culture. From the famous Red Square in Moscow to the beautiful buildings of St. Petersburg, there are many marvels to discover in this vast country. However, what is the reason that Russia is frequently the target of the discussion on which country is the most impolite? Based on a Skyscanner survey, Russia comes in second place with approximately 16% of the votes. But wait a second, everyone. There is additional information in the story. Russian is known for being less polite than English, which can unintentionally come across as rude to English speakers when Russians translate directly. Oh no, once again, we are faced with communication problems due to language barriers. A small translation error may be causing Russia to receive a negative reputation. However, that is not the end of it, people. Political conflicts with specific nations, in addition to Russia's chilly weather and stringent visa policies, can exacerbate the situation. And now, let's discuss Moscow, shall we? This busy city is not just the capital of Russia, but also ranks among the world's most unwelcoming cities. However, don't allow that to discourage you. Underlying Moscow is filled with friendliness and attractiveness, ready to be explored. Therefore, is Russia truly considered one of the most impolite nations globally? It all depends on how you look at it. Even though there are factors that can affect its reputation, we should also acknowledge the authentic hospitality and kindness that many travelers personally encounter. Number 14. Cameroon. A nation located in the center of Africa, showcasing beautiful scenery ranging from green rainforests to charming beaches. That is Cameroon in a nutshell. However, underneath its beauty lies an intricate truth. In spite of the impressive cultural and geographic variety in Cameroon, a cloud hangs over its hospitality. The impact of political turmoil and rising crime levels has created a sense of hostility in this otherwise lively country. Now let's address the obvious issue, the northern area. The presence of kidnapping and violence creates a hostile environment for tourists. It is a sharp difference from the friendly greeting you would expect in a new location. Imagine this scenario. While walking through the streets, excited to immerse yourself in the local culture, you are constantly encountering demonstrations and labor strikes at every turn. It could make anyone feel as if they have stayed too long. Before dismissing Cameroon entirely, it is important to remember that there are individuals behind every statistic and headline. Individuals with tales to narrate, customs to pass down, and grins that can illuminate a space. Number 15. Mongolia. If you have any knowledge of Mongolia, it is likely the legendary stories of Genghis Khan and the powerful Mongol armies capturing extensive territories. But you know what? Contemporary Mongolia is a completely new narrative. Situated amidst Russia and China, Mongolia boasts incredible variations and awe-inspiring scenery. But here's the twist. Nearly half of Mongolia's residents reside in the capital city, Ulaanbaatar. If you want to mingle with the locals, that's the spot to go to. Mongolia doesn't attract tourists like Paris or Tokyo do. When you arrive, expect the locals to give you a couple of curious glances. They could possibly question, why is this outsider present here? Beneath their impassive expressions, there is a genuine warmth and kindness that is truly heartening. After you make the initial contact, you'll discover that Mongolians are incredibly hospitable people. Furthermore, we must also remember the diverse cultural fabric that sets Mongolia apart. From the art of throat singing to the customs of nomadic tribes, there are always intriguing things waiting to be found at every turn. So, there you have it, everyone. Mongolia is often seen as being somewhat reserved, yet if you dig deeper, you will discover a country full of endless marvels and amazing hospitality. Thank you for coming along with me on this crazy adventure. Remember to click the like button and subscribe for more exciting journeys.